Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are continuing with chapter number 5, which is Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. Verse number 7. Yoga yukto vishuddhatma vijatatma jitendriyaha sarva bhutatma bhutatma kurvan apina lipyate. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. One who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmanitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So we are continuing with Karma Yoga. And in this verse and the remaining verses that we'll cover today till verse number 12, Krishna is giving us the process for liberation. He is giving us knowledge about what are the requirements of someone who wants to get liberated. Now, sometimes people think liberation means it's after giving up this body. No. Liberation can be achieved even while being in this material body. It's a state of consciousness. So, what are the requirements? First of all, a person has to perform work in devotion. So, whatever work we are performing, whether it is at home, in the job or business, whatever it is, that has to be done in devotion. That is Karma Yoga. So, what does it mean to work in devotion? It means we perform, first of all, our prescribed duty. Secondly, we use the results of our activities for Krishna. For instance, I go to my place of work, my job, I earn my paycheck, I get the money. I use that money in Krishna's service. And one example I can give is, excuse me, is that I buy groceries from that money. I cook nice food for the Lord and I offer it to Him. So, what am I doing? I'm using my earnings in the service of the Lord. That is devotion, working in devotion. Now, what is the result of that? The result is we are leading a karma free life. No more actions, reactions. And in the process of working in devotion, Krishna tells Arjuna that one starts purifying the mind and the senses. So, a very simple method is given to us to purify mind and senses. And the first step is mantra meditation, where we chant the holy names of the Lord. Meditate on those holy names of the Lord, which is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. You see, when we start leading a disciplined life, which means neither eat too much nor too little, nor neither sleep too much nor too little, try to control the mind and the senses. See, then we will be able to purify our mind and senses. In Ayurveda, there is a simple formula that is followed, which is very good for health. And we need a healthy body so that we can perform devotional service. If we are going to remain sick all the time or ill or unhealthy or, so how will we work in devotion? So Ayurveda says that before each meal, we should fill our stomach 1/4 of it with water and then fill in only half of the stomach with food, not eat up till here, only half, and remaining 1/4 should be left empty for the air to move inside to digest the food properly. So you see, to lead a healthy life, regulation is necessary to maintain the body properly. That's healthy life. So these requirements are given by the Lord that one has to work in devotion. And when one works in devotion, we follow all these requirements that are needed, then there will be no more entanglement. Then there's going to be the life that we will lead will be karma free, and we will not be, entangling ourselves more and more in this material world. And the reason people get entangled is because the senses are not under control. They are uncontrolled. Remember, we talk about the horses of the chariot. If the horses are not under control, they're going to go haywire. They're going to go in different directions. That's the situation of our senses. But Krishna says when we work in devotion, in knowledge, not blind faith, but in knowledge, then the purification process starts immediately. We start purifying ourselves. You see? And what does Krishna tell us in this verse that we recited this morning? That such a person who's leading a controlled life, who's working in devotion, he says, is dear to other people, dear to others. That person is completely satisfied. The mind and the senses are completely controlled. And so that person does not offend anyone. That person is performing austerity of the speech, which means talking in a very pleasant way, not to agitate others, always speaking the truth, reciting the Vedic, scriptures. That is the austerity of speech. So when a person is austere, then naturally others are going to like that person, right? So what is it that this person has changed? Not the material body, but the state of consciousness. That's about it. Then when person comes to that state of consciousness, it's considered to be a liberated person. That is the process of liberation. See, we need to come to that state of pure consciousness where we see every living entity as part of the Lord, every living entity as the child of the Lord. You see, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Mamai Vamsha Jiva Loki, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. You see, the Jiva, all the Jivas, they are amshas, they are parts of the Supreme Lord. He's saying, Mamai, mine. Krishna says, they are all my parts. And they are Sanatana, eternal. So when we start seeing every living entity as part of the Supreme Lord, then we are in the right state of consciousness. You see, like we see branches of the tree. All those branches, they are part of the tree. Similarly, we are parts of the Supreme Lord. So, whenever we work in devotion for Krishna, we are actually satisfying everyone. Srila Prabhupada gives very nice example, 2 examples. Excuse me. One is watering the root of the tree. When we water the root of the tree, the whole tree gets nourished. When we put food in our mouth, the whole body gets nourished. So when we work in devotion for Krishna, then everyone else is also satisfied. That is called being pure in consciousness. And such a person who is very dear to the Lord, dear to everyone else, is very satisfied. Is not looking, I want this and I want that, and running after things and possessions. No. Because that person is satisfied with whatever the Supreme Lord has provided. And that is called having mind and senses under control. Such a person who's working in devotion, who's already liberated, that person is fixed in Krishna consciousness. And what are the symptoms of such a person? Likes to hear about the Lord, likes to read the Bhagavad Gita, likes to eat only prasadam, which is sanctified food, which is offered to the Lord, is following the instructions of the Lord that are given in the Bhagavad Gita. You see, all these activities one can see in a liberated person. Now, in the Bhagavad Gita, we see that Arjuna, he did not want to fight against his relatives, but when when he heard from Krishna the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, then he realized who is God, who he is, the living entity, the spirit soul. He understood how karma works, the material nature and the eternal time, and then he wanted to follow the orders of the Lord. And to carry out the orders of Krishna, he wanted to fight. So when he was performing his duty, prescribed duty as a kshatriya, a warrior, to fight in the battlefield, he was actually doing that. You can call it as karma yoga. There were no reactions because he was doing it for the pleasure of the Lord, to fulfill the desire of the Lord. That is called karma yoga or bhakti yoga, which has no reactions at all. In verses 8 and 9, Lord Krishna gives the divine, you can say, qualities of divine consciousness. He lists down certain qualities. How do we recognize someone who has these, qualities, who is on the level of divine consciousness? So Krishna says someone who sees, hears, touches, smells, eats, moves about, sleeps, breathes. He knows that all this he is not doing. He knows that only the material senses are engaged in such activities. These senses are engaged in sense objects, but he, the spirit soul, is aloof from all of this. The soul does not do anything. It is these senses who are performing these activities. Everything is carried out by this material body. Has nothing to do with the spirit soul. See, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Prakrite kriyamanani gune karmani sarvasha ahankar vimhud atma kartahamiti manyate. Out of ahankar, out of false ego, one thinks, I am the doer. We are not the doers. The soul stays aloof. So one who is in knowledge, he knows the truth, is not on the bodily concept of life, thinking, I am this body, meditating on, I am this body. No. A liberated person is aware based on knowledge that I am not this body, but I am the spirit soul. Because such a liberated person has understood what is one's real identity, that is the spirit soul. That is actually the basic knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. See that I am not this body. So one can become pure just by performing devotional service to the Lord. In other words, work in devotion. The whole theme of these few verses is to work in devotion. Then one is on the platform of liberation. Important to understand, what is our position. Jivera Swarup hoy, Krishnera Nitya Das. That is our constitutional position, to be Krishna's eternal servant, not servant on the weekends or servant once a week, twice a week. No. Eternal, which means always we are the servants of whom? The Spirit, Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. But when one is not on that state of consciousness, when one is only trying to satisfy one's senses, then there's going to be frustration because the senses can never be satisfied. Imagine we have a bucket and we want to fill it with water. If there is a hole at the bottom of the bucket, we will never be able to fill that bucket with water because the water is going to start dripping out of that hole. It's never going to be filled up. That is the situation with, the senses. No matter how much we try to satisfy the senses, because of that hole in the bucket, the senses will never be satisfied. So it's important that we try to control our mind and senses. And when we start operating in, that state of consciousness of working in devotion, then there's going to be full satisfaction. Then the mind and senses will not run around to find something to do to become satisfied. Now, how does all this take place? It's a very simple formula that when we start performing karma yoga, very, very important, start performing karma yoga, work in devotion, that leads to no reactions at all, reaction free life. You see? So even though one may be working, engaging senses in different activities, there will be no karma attached to it. It is be free. Why? Because the state of consciousness has been changed. Now, in verse number 10, Krishna tells Arjuna that those who perform their duty without attachment, surrendering all the results to Krishna, they are unaffected by reactions. And he gives a very nice example of a lotus leaf. Now we see a beautiful lotus flower blooming in water which is not very clean. Excuse me. But the lotus leaf does not get affected by that impure water. Why? Because the leaf of the lotus flower has a wax covering. So even a drop of water falling on that lotus leaf slides out and falls away. Nothing touches, nothing stays on that lotus leaf. Why? Because of that wax covering. So, what do we learn from this? Krishna is trying to say that when we become like a lotus leaf, which means when we start performing our prescribed duty without any attachment, surrender all our results to Krishna, then we will be unaffected by reactions, which means we will be unaffected by Maya, which is illusion. It'll just slide off from us. It's not going to stay. We will not get affected by Maya. So, what is that wax covering on the lotus flower? How does it, how do we understand that? Srila Prabhupada explains that the wax of Bhagavad Gita can help us to remain pure so that Maya cannot affect us. You see, Prabhupada explains that this material world is a sum total of three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. Now, in chapter 14, which is entitled Modes of Material Nature, we will understand how to transcend these three modes, go beyond, come to the stage of pure goodness. So, being good is not good enough. We have to go beyond. We have to come to the state of pure goodness. And how is that possible? When we do everything in relation to Krishna, everything, which means our consciousness should be that everything belongs to Krishna. And so everything should be used in his service. So anyone who understands this, who applies this, puts this into practice, will automatically engage in devotional service to the Lord. Then that person will automatically start working in devotion for the Lord. And that is the stage of liberation. What is that person liberated from? Liberated from karma. No more reactions, no more sinful reactions. And when there are no more reactions, then the result is no more birth, no more coming back into the cycle of birth and death, no more coming back into this material world. So, if one understands that this material body given to us by the Lord is actually a precious gift, and this precious gift should be used in service of the one who has gifted it to us, and that is Krishna himself. Why is it considered a precious gift? It's because with this material body, human body, comes philosophical intelligence, so that we can understand the difference between body and soul, so we can understand what is our goal in this human form of life. Imagine if we did not have that intelligence, then today we would not be sitting and hearing Bhagavad Gita. Then we would be just, in that state where they say, eat, sleep, and be merry, not concerned about, what we need to do, where we are, where do we need to go from here. No, nothing at all. You see? So, this gift of this human form of life should be used in the service of the Supreme Lord. And when we start performing service to Him, then there is no more contamination. Then we become pure like that lotus leaf, which is in the water but still does not get wet. You see? So we will still be in this material world and not get contaminated. That is the process for liberation. You see, we are already in the material world. There's nothing we can do about it. But we can definitely improve our future. A nice example is if I want to go from Atlanta to New York, and in error, which actually never happens, but supposing in error, I end up sitting in the flight which is actually going to Los Angeles. My destination is New York, but I'm on a flight to Los Angeles. The flight is already, it's in flight. The flight, plane is already flying. What can I do? Open the door and jump off? No. Since I have already entered into the wrong plane, there's nothing I can do. But yes, while sitting in that flight, I can plan how to reach my destination, which means I plan while, the plane is flying that, okay, when I get off at Los Angeles, I'm going to buy a ticket to New York, Los Angeles to New York, and I'm going to make sure that I get on the right flight so that I can reach my destination, which is New York. By the way, New York is not my destination. I'm just giving an analogy or an example. So, similarly, now that we are already in the material world, there's nothing we can do. But if we know our goal is to go back to the spiritual world, then we can start planning on that journey while in this material world at the present moment. And Bhagavad Gita is giving us, the instructions on how to reach the spiritual world. Krishna tells Arjuna, Janma karma cha me divyam, evam yo veti tattvaha, tyaktva deham punarjanma, neti mameti so Arjuna. If we don't want punarjanma, if we don't want to come back in this material world, then we need to understand, Krishna says, anybody who understands the transcendental nature of my appearance and my activities, that person, after giving up this body, does not come back into this material world. Now, it's not that easy to understand Krishna's appearance and activities. That is why we have to go through the whole Bhagavad Gita step by step so that we can understand who is He and who we are. What is our relationship with Him? So, when we understand the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita given in the Bhagavad Gita by Krishna Himself, then we will understand how to perform karma yoga. That is our topic for today, how to work in devotion. Why? Because we need to understand the process for liberation, how to liberate ourselves, how to liberate our consciousness from this material consciousness that most people are generally in. You see? So when we start working in devotion, we start liberating ourselves. But Srila Prabhupada says that those who do not work in devotion, they try to engage in dry renunciation, which means something that they are trying to do on the bodily concept of life. You see, not in real Krishna consciousness. They are just, saying, like, for instance, a person is fed up of family life and says, oh, I don't want, to be, I'm too frustrated. Let me renounce my family. That is dry renunciation. Real renunciation is based on knowledge from the Bhagavad Gita. You see? So when one works in devotion, then there is no dry renunciation. Now, in verse number 11, Krishna gives the process for purification that will lead to liberation. He says that yoga, what is yoga? Yoga is connecting with the Supreme Lord. That's yoga. So he says yoga is for purification of mind, senses, and body. So when we start performing our activities in consciousness of Krishna, that is called yoga. And that is going to lead to the purification of mind, body, and senses. In other words, we need to be conscious of Krishna all the time. Whatever activities we are performing, we need to contemplate on it. Is it something that is according to the Bhagavad Gita? Is it something that Krishna is asking us to do, giving us that knowledge? In other words, performing a karma. We learned in chapter 3 what is a karma. A karma is where we perform our activities based on the knowledge from the Bhagavad Gita and not trying to enjoy the fruits of those activities, not getting attached to the results of our activities. That is our karma. And that mode of operating, in mode of performing our activities leads to no reactions, karma-free life. And such a person is on the liberated stage of life. And such a person is not operating on false ego, right? There is no, that there is real ego, but not false ego, that I am this body, everything is there, I am the Lord of all I survey, I am the controller, I am the enjoyer. No. There is no false ego. That person understands Krishna is the controller. He is the ultimate enjoyer. And I, Jivera Swarupoy, Krishna Ranityadyas. My constitutional position is I'm the eternal servant of Krishna. And such a liberated person applies everything in the service of the Lord. Whatever activities one is performing dovetails it to the Lord. A simple example is eating. We eat every day. Why not dovetail it to Krishna consciousness? How? By offering our food, whatever we have cooked to eat, offer it first to the Lord. Get that prasadam, that sanctified food. So, what have we done? The process of eating is dovetailed. That activity is dovetailed to Krishna. That is how we will be on the stage of yoga, which means connect with Krishna through bhakti yoga. And what is bhakti yoga? Bhakti yoga is nothing but working in devotion. See? And when we start working in devotion, as Krishna tells Arjuna, there is going to be purification. And that purification is going to lead us to the stage of liberation. That is the process. Now, in verse number 12, which will be the last verse for today, Krishna is telling Arjuna that the devoted soul, someone who is devoted to him, to Krishna, is steadily, going forward on this journey of Krishna consciousness. That person attains peace. Towards the end of this chapter, we will also hear the peace formula. There's a formula how to be peaceful. And Krishna tells Arjuna that someone who is steadily working in devotion, that person, the peace that person receives is not adulterated, it's not contaminated, and it's not temporary. That peace is permanent. Now, in the material world, we have noticed that if we have a desire to, possess something, to get something, or to buy something, or to do something, there is so much enthusiasm for that. Why? Because that strong desire is there. Now, once we get what we desire, we are happy for a little time. It's temporary happiness. After that, we see something better, and now we want something better, which means we were not satisfied with what we had before. Why? Because it's material, it's nothing spiritual. So, this peace that is attained through working in devotion, Krishna says, is not adulterated and it is not temporary. And what is the reason for that? It's Prabhupada says, because that devotee is offering all the results of activities to Krishna, that devotee is working in devotion for the Lord, that devotee is performing a karma, so that person is not greedy to enjoy the results of those activities. And because of that, that devotee is not entangled. You see, entanglement leads to frustration. No one likes to be bound up. Imagine if we were all present together here in this room, in my house, and I tied you all up, with a rope. I tied your hands and your legs. And would you be happy? No. No one likes to be tied up. So, entanglement is like being tied up by the modes of material nature. But a person who works in devotion, who is already liberated, is not greedy to enjoy the fruits, is not entangled at all. Now, how do we know what is the difference between someone who's liberated and someone who is in bondage? Very, very simple. Person who is working in devotion is liberated, offering the results to the Lord. Whereas the other person who is working to enjoy the senses is attached to the results of the activities, that person is in bondage. And what is the result of being in bondage? Anxiety. There is one is anxious about the results. Oh, I have done this for my boss at work. Is my boss going to appreciate what I have done? There's anxiety over the results of those activities, and that anxiety leads to no peace, no happiness. But if one gives up the results of the activities, then one remains peaceful. And if a person who is engaging in enjoying the senses is engaging in, being attached to the fruits of those activities, even if that person attains happiness, that happiness is going to be temporary, according to Krishna. Now, how do we know someone who is working in devotion? Very simple. That person is completely dependent on the mercy of the Lord, knows, understands from the knowledge from Bhagavad Gita that whatever I'm going to receive in my life is based on my past karma. Whatever results I will get from my activities is based on my past actions. There can be no change at all. Every action has a reaction. So, right now, if I'm suffering or if I'm happy, whatever the state may be, is because of my past actions. And such a person is not disturbed, has complete faith in the Lord, and starts following the instructions of the Lord given in the Bhagavad Gita. That person is not, trying to calculate profits, profit calculation. Oh, I did this, so now this is the result I should get, and I'm going to enjoy. No, such a person is liberated, is not looking for enjoying the senses. In chapter 3, we learned a very beautiful verse. Yagnarthat karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tad artham karma kantaya mukta sangha samachara. Krishna tells Arjuna, work done as a sacrifice for the Lord has to be performed. Two important words, sacrifice and has, which means there is no choice. If we want to be liberated, then we have no choice but to do our work as a sacrifice, which means we sacrifice the results, which means we don't get attached to the results of our activities. Work done as a sacrifice for the Lord has to be performed, otherwise, work causes bondage. Now we have a choice. We decide, do I want liberation or do I want bondage? If I want liberation, then I need to perform our activities in that state of consciousness where I'm going to use the results of my activities in the service of the Lord. Then there is no more entanglement, you see. So we need to be attached to Krishna, not to the results of our activities, you see. Now, if we get attached to Krishna, then automatically we will be detached from the results of our activities. That'll be just the outcome of being attached to Krishna. You see? But if one is greedy greedy for the results of activities, that will lead to fall down. And that's all. So karma yoga is not very difficult to understand. Yes, Krishna tells Arjuna it's difficult to understand karma. In other words, try to calculate, why am I suffering now? Why my suffering is so big? What did I do in my past? I want to know what are the past activities. No, Krishna tells Arjuna it's very difficult to understand karma. But if one starts working in devotion, then one will understand how karma yoga works. So when a person is liberated, then there's no more anxiety. Why? Because there's complete dependence on Krishna's mercy. And such a person is permanently happy and peaceful. So, devotional service that is performed or work that is done in devotion for the Lord is on the transcendental platform. It's not material. One may be performing some material activity like, cooking food, offering. It may appear to be a material activity, but it is not. It's on the transcendental platform because it's being performed for the satisfaction of the Lord. So if we start working or acting, in Krishna consciousness, which means we are conscious of Krishna all the time, then one will be able to attain peace. And also, Prabhupada says, one will be able to attain fearlessness. So working in devotion is the process for liberation. It's very, very simple. And how does this purification take place? What is the first step of working in devotion? It is mantra meditation. Simple as that. We need to meditate on the holy names of the Lord. Meditate, which means chant the holy names of the Lord. Now, chanting is not a material activity, it is transcendental. The holy names are so powerful that once they enter into our ears, they go straight to the heart and they start purifying the heart. And that leads to purification of mind and senses also. You see? So it's not difficult at all. So just like every class, let us chant the holy names, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, at least 10 times. And I would humbly request all of you, if you're not chanting, to please start chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And if you are chanting, then increase the chanting. And if you're already chanting 16 rounds, then please try to chant them very attentively, so that we can get full benefit of the holy names. So let us start chanting the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Please chant with me, all of you, please. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So you see, it's very, very simple. So it's my very humble request. Please chant every day the holy names of the Lord, and this will help us to come to the state of liberation. It will help us to perform karma yoga, work in devotion. So I'm going to end now. And if any of you have any comments or questions, you are welcome to ask.